What you are looking at is the graph of total suicides in the United States by year and gender between 1981 and 2016, directly from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention fatal injury reports. It's no secret that depression and anxiety are becoming more and more common in the 21st century. Except these last few weeks, I found myself going down a bit of a rabbit hole that was way deeper than I ever imagined. And what I found, to say the least, is quite terrifying. In a minute, I will tell you exactly what I found and why I believe that such a high percentage of modern men are experiencing symptoms of depression. But for now, let me tell you why I started digging in the first place. You know that feeling when something just feels off? You're looking at random articles popping up and messages being spread on social media that just don't quite feel right. Almost as if, well, I don't know, there was some kind of hidden ulterior motive. Well, that's exactly how I've been feeling about the perpetually worsening state of modern men's mental health. It's almost as if these changes in society are so specific and perfectly coordinated that there might just be something deeper going on than we could have ever imagined. So I decided to dive down the rabbit hole and see if I could find what was behind all of this, and more importantly, why. See, there is a message going around on social media, almost as if by pure intention, where masculinity is being aggressively attacked. In fact, and try it if you doubt me, one of the first results of a Google search of the word masculinity will bring up articles about toxic masculinity. And make no mistake, social media has no shortage of messages shaming men. Not to mention that the men who stand up and talk about these issues are almost psychopathically silenced for it. In fact, the YouTuber Hamza recently had almost half of his income just cut off for, I don't know, making videos encouraging young men to better their lives. And let alone what happened to a certain Bugatti owner whose name should be cautiously mentioned on this platform. All of this had me wondering, could there possibly be a connection between the raising male suicide rates and the almost anti-male society that we live in today? Well, intuition says yes. Except, the story doesn't end there. Everything happens for a reason. So, I had the burning desire to try and figure this all out. Why are the male suicide rates rising? Why is it that masculinity is being so publicly shamed? Why is it that the available information on men's mental health is so ambiguous, filtered, and blatantly incorrect? All of these questions led me down a rabbit hole that just got deeper and deeper. And with the terrifying censorship of the information that we have available on these topics, the only path I could take was to open a few books. I found myself studying the motives and causes of past wars, as well as ancient philosophy, psychology, and even certain religious books. This all led me to the conclusion that there is something terribly nefarious going on. Now I warn you, this video is fucking graphic. This is not one of those motivational, entertaining videos that hypes you up. This video will disturb you because you need to wake up. I don't care if what I say offends anybody. I don't think that people killing themselves is a topic that we can sugarcoat. Action needs to be taken before more lives are unnecessarily lost. Now, the issue with data is that it is just a bunch of numbers. And let's be honest, hearing the statistic that men account for almost 70% of the almost 46,000 suicides in the United States alone in 2020 is shocking, but you probably can't quite comprehend just how disgusting that fact truly is. So, I'm going to tell you a personal story about a young man that ended his life at the age of 20. Now, I'm going to keep his personal details completely private. Let's call him Billy. Billy was born into a middle-class family in the United States. He had a pretty normal childhood with no real lack of access to everything he needed. His parents were kind and nurturing, aside from the fact that his mother was very stressed when he was young since she had to take care of him and also work a job since she was the breadwinner of the family. So, growing up in a comfortable environment would probably suggest that Billy would have had a pretty enjoyable life. And he actually had that exact thought, which he wrote down in his suicide note before hanging himself. See, Billy had been feeling this way for a couple of years now, but he felt too guilty to speak up about it. After all, there were people in the world that had way worse circumstances than Billy. He thought about this fact every time he felt depressed, except that just made him feel worse, which made him think about it more, perpetually worsening the state of his mental health in a positive feedback loop. Poor Billy. One could only imagine the grimness of his self-hatred. Oh, did I forget to mention that Billy was on antidepressants? Thought those were supposed to cure depression. Well, let's see. Billy grew up in a household where his mother was the breadwinner of the house. His father would take care of most of the household chores and would often be chasing after his wife, trying to make her happy and get her approval. This little dynamic confused Billy, as it was different from what he saw in the older movies, but he didn't question it. What really got to him was the fact that whenever he experienced any sort of anger or frustration, his parents would punish him for it, telling him not to throw temper tantrums or be so sensitive. Billy was also not allowed to do the stuff that the other boys in his school were doing. He wasn't allowed to play with toy guns or ride motorbikes because his mother didn't want him doing anything dangerous that could get him hurt. One day at school, one of the naughty kids in the class threw a pencil case at Billy's head for some dumb reason. And Billy stood up, walked up to the boy and told him that if he did it again, he would get punched in the face. The boy started crying and Billy got forced into a teacher-parent meeting where he was scolded by both his overweight female teacher and his furious mother. After that, Billy knew that it was wrong to stand up for himself. Instead of fighting the bullies, he would learn to just kind of zone out and ignore them. Just like he did with his parents when they were fighting, and also in that one class with the teacher that was always shouting. It just seemed more peaceful that way. And now I'm no psychologist, but that does kind of sound like the ADHD that the school counselor diagnosed Billy with. Just saying. Now, Billy was a smart boy in school. He could kind of tell that his teachers weren't that happy themselves, yet they were supposed to hold the knowledge needed to succeed and live a meaningful life. It seemed like the whole thing felt a bit off, but Billy thought that he better just listen to the adults around him since they were so confident that they knew better. Now, Billy didn't zone out all the time. He did have something that he really enjoyed, which was video games. See, Billy would get lost in the worlds of those video games on his PlayStation, conquering difficult missions, leveling up his character, exploring the world, and making his character extremely wealthy and powerful. Of course, he didn't have to do that. He could just do the easy missions and have fun, but something inside him just felt so right when he did the difficult missions and leveled up his character. Those games became so addictive and consuming that Billy would sacrifice his sleep and personal relationships just to play them. As Billy grew up, he started developing feelings for the girls at his school. Now, Billy wasn't a little bitch. He went right up to those girls at school and talked to them. Except he did it in the same way that his father treated his mother, which was to just be as nice as possible. And for some reason, he kept getting rejected and friend-zoned. Guess what? That was the final fucking straw. Billy accepted that there must just be something wrong with him. His parents expected too much of him. His friends at school teased the shit out of him and didn't respect him. His teachers would scold him all the time. His parents kind of just ignored him at home except when they shouted at him. And the girls he liked would never feel the same. What other explanation was there? Something was wrong with Billy. He was helpless. No matter what he did, it just felt like his life was a never-ending monogamous nightmare. Billy was then taken to a therapist by his suspicious parents where he was diagnosed with clinical depression. And he was prescribed Prozac to make him feel better. It seemed to work at first. Billy felt happier, but nothing really changed in his life. Soon the effects appeared to diminish, and it was like he had to take more to just feel happy again. Over the next couple of months, Billy became more and more inwardly negative towards himself for feeling this way, and ultimately decided to end his own life. Not out of selfishness like the few pricks he talked to about it suggested, but because he felt like he was just wasting everybody's time and resources and wasn't worth it. Now listen, if you relate to the story in any way, you need to really pay attention now. Because albeit society tells us that, we're all completely unique and different, a lot of us do suffer issues in the same way. And if you find yourself on the same path as Billy, you will probably ultimately end up the same way. And I know I'm just some random stranger on the internet, but I really don't want to hear any more stories of young men with so much potential inside themselves end it all. So do me a favor and just give me your undivided attention just for this one video. I'm not going to try and sell you anything, and this isn't a bland video I put together with crappy summaries of other YouTubers' videos. I have put months of research into this video with the sole purpose of helping young men cure their depression. For the next few minutes, just stop checking out the comments, put your phone on Do Not Disturb, and close the extra tabs and pause the music. By focusing, you help not only yourself, but other sufferers of depression, because if you watch this video to the end, YouTube will recommend it to more people. So then, What the hell is causing so many young men to feel depressed in these modern times? No, it's not video games, it's not pornography, and it's not social media. Well, sort of. See, these things make it a lot worse, but I'll explain that in a second. So, from the research I've done, I've found that the main causes of depression in modern men seem to be as follows. Number 1. A learned sense of helplessness. Picture those dreams that you've had in the past. Those dreams where you're either fighting with something or running from something. But yet, it feels like you're stuck. You can't move. You're moving in slow motion. Unable to protect yourself. That is the feeling of helplessness. The feeling of helplessness is feeling as though you have no control in a stressful situation. And it's no wonder you have a sense of learned helplessness. You probably grew up in a family where your parents had no real idea what they were doing, or worse, a single mother household. And then you're put in the school system where you're forced to sit down for 5 hours straight and repress all of your energy and desire to play and have fun. Not to mention submit to pathetic authority figures and never be able to stand up for yourself. Or maybe you did try and stand up for yourself. Maybe you fought back, maybe you zoned out. And guess what? You were punished for it. Disciplined for rebelling or prescribed drugs to calm you down because there was supposedly something wrong with you. In fact, I do remember very vividly when I finished high school, the teachers told the class this phrase that I will never forget. You are no longer unique individuals. You are a 13-digit barcode. Yeah, it's no wonder you felt helpless. Overcoming learned helplessness is a difficult journey, and the solution will not come easily. Understand this. You got to this point because you relinquished the control of your own life. You willingly accepted the fact that the supposed authority figures around you knew better. You conformed and assumed that you should just take the path that was set out for you. And in case you haven't noticed, that path has taken you to an endless pit of meaninglessness and lack of purpose, leaving you drifting through life without direction, chasing the next shiny object that the media tells you will make you happy, accepting the state of living because that's just life and that's just the way it is. Do you ever consider the fact that maybe, just maybe, there is a possibility that you can choose your own direction? After all, there is nothing inherently stopping you from going in a different direction to everybody else. You just fear the consequences and you fear failure. And I can't blame you. You're taught as you grow up to be afraid of everything. But I will say this, the pain of temporary failure is nothing in the face of the burden of regret. From this point, start to take back control of your life. Take a journal and write out a bunch of things that you want to change in your life. Focus only on what you can control and get to work. Small changes that you make today will have a massive impact on your life in the future. Number 2. Learned hatred of your masculine core. Pause the video and do this now. Search the word masculinity on Google and start scrolling. Scroll until you see the word toxic. It will probably be one of the first results. Whether you've realized it or not, there is a war going on against masculinity, and you've seen it with your own eyes. How many modern movies have you seen where men are portrayed as stupid, idiotic morons who have no respect from their family whatsoever? How many social media posts have you seen criticizing men for completely harmless behaviors? Not to mention certain feminist individuals publicly shaming men, encouraging genocide, and even going so far as to say that men are useless. And gentlemen, let's not even get started on the recent social media cancellations of men that teach anything remotely related to masculinity and the bettering of oneself. Gentlemen, up until this point, you have probably been taught that embracing your masculine qualities is a bad thing. And it's not. Throw that belief down the drain. Pursue what is masculine and what aligns with your core as a man. You'll probably be shamed for this, but every time that happens, just remember to disconnect yourself from the situation and objectively observe the other person's life who is shaming you for your masculinity and ask yourself, do you want to be like them? If the answer is no, then don't listen to what they say. If the media and modern society as a whole was correct in the feminization of modern men, then everybody would be happy. Instead, modern men are literally choosing to kill themselves over conforming to the picture that modern society paints of them. Statistics don't lie, my friend. Number 3, fear of your shadow. No, not your actual shadow. It is that little voice inside your head that you don't want to hear. The one that makes you want to malevolently beat your boss as they shout in your face for something stupid. It's those random hostile remarks that burst out of you when you've just had enough. Recognize what I'm talking about? That's your shadow. And you've been conditioned to hate it. You were sent for a timeout as a kid when you displayed anger. You were punished at school when you ever stood up to your teachers and authority figures. And guess what? You took all of that frustration and anger and you repressed it, pushing it to the back of your mind, hoping that it would just disappear. And now, you're paying for it. You endure negative thoughts. Imagine yourself committing some act of evil or even hurting others. And guess what? You feel like a horrible person for it. All of these thoughts that you have, you redirect towards yourself. You start to develop so much self-hatred. Or worse, one day you decide that you've just had enough. And you lash out and cause chaos. That's how school shootings happen, my friend. Now, I probably have a different opinion on this to certain psychologists, but the process that I went through was to learn to use my shadow in such a way that it benefits me. Understand, there is immense energy in those repressed emotions. Remember that energy cannot be created or destroyed, it can only be transferred. Use this to your advantage. If you have deep, repressed anger, redirect it towards something worthwhile. For example, when I'm training Muay Thai, I look at that bag and I project my most painful and frustrating memory straight onto that bag, and then I hit it. And suddenly, I don't get tired while I'm hitting it. I just hit it continuously until the clock eventually stops me. That is the power of directed anger, my friend. You also need to learn how to stand up for yourself, because if you don't, you will end up being a victim for the rest of your life. And of course, elevate the level of aggression that you need accordingly. Obviously, you don't want to beat up your friend if they make a joke about you that you don't like. Number 4, lack of purpose and meaning. Why do you wake up every morning? Most people can't even answer that question. Now, what happens if you live a life without purpose? The world around you will tell you what your purpose is. You will literally pass butter, working the jobs that nobody else wants because that just seems like your only option. Well, of course, spending all of your free time indulging in pleasurable instant gratification activities because that just seems to be what modern society thinks makes us happy. And it's no fucking wonder you have no purpose. See, from the moment we're born, we have this perfect little trajectory set out for us. Enjoy your childhood for a little while. Then you're put into the school system where you focus all of your time and energy in getting the best grades. And then you can go to college and get a overpriced degree and then nothing. It's just a big empty void. And that's when a lot of people start their descent into meaningless pursuits of pleasure. You need to have purpose. Now, you will know what your purpose is, and your purpose will be fleeting at first, appearing as random hunches of something that you want to work towards. And these are what modern society will normally poorly define as midlife crises. And it is not. It is purpose. When you discover the next step that you need to take towards your purpose, act on it. And of course, do the minimum required to sustain the other areas of your life while you pursue your new purpose. But dedicate the remainder of your time to your next step of purpose. Now note this very carefully. When you complete the next step of your purpose, you will not feel fulfilled because there is no destination. You must find meaning in the pursuit. Now understand something. If you deny your purpose, you will become depressed. Think of depression like a warning sign that you need to change something in your life. Number 5, lack of personal connection. Take a walk and look around you. What do you see? People walking the streets, absorbed in their cell phones, barely even aware of each other's presence. What about the people sitting down at restaurants to enjoy each other's company? On their cell phones, taking pictures of their food. Ask yourself this. When was the last time that you actually made a conscious effort to connect with somebody? Understand, we are social creatures. We need to be connected with the people around us. Yet, we isolate ourselves, barely even noticing anybody around us anymore. We are so addicted to social media and our cell phones that we don't even realize the blunt truth. Social media is anything but social. It's isolating us from the world. Now, it's probably appropriate with the recent cancellations that I should probably say this, but I'm not saying that you should just quit social media completely, but take time to notice the people around you and try to form connections with them. Take a break from social media every now and then and focus on your personal relationships. And if you need help with that, read How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. It's a great book. You know, The more I think about it, the more that this all just seems so perfectly calculated and coordinated. Almost as if, well, I don't know, it was all planned? But hey, I'm no conspiracy theorist. Now, this video is getting a bit long, but I want to touch onto one last thing. Coping mechanisms. I think at this point most people understand that social media, pornography, video games can be bad for your mental health. But remember something about these things. They may not necessarily be the cause of your depression, but they are coping mechanisms. Think about it. You wouldn't be jacking off multiple times per day if you had access to women in your everyday life. You also wouldn't be scrolling on social media all day if you had an interesting life. And you especially wouldn't be endlessly pursuing challenges in video games if you were pursuing challenges in real life. You are indulging in these instant gratification activities because you are seeking pleasure that you don't have in real life. Now, I'm not so ignorant as to tell you to just quit these things, because I understand that they're highly addictive. But here's 2 tips. Start slowly but surely decreasing the volume of these things in your life, and then replace them with a better habit. For example, every time you feel like jacking off, get down on the ground and do 20 push-ups instead. Simply take the time to replace activities that are instant gratification with activities that are delayed gratification. And that will put you ahead of around 90% of the world's population. Just remember that when you do this, there is no competition.